think what's very easy to forget after you watch a movie is that what we start with is zero sound. No sound at all. So we're making a movie in CGI. Those are computer-generated images. That's what CGI stands for, basically. But you don't get sound out of CGI. That's a whole extra step that we have to add and plan from scratch. Sound design in movies is at least half of the experience, I think. You watch it, but you also listen to it.
Cybot lives to party.
Sound design is using sound and sound effects to create a believable world for our characters to live in.
Truck!
With something like an animated feature like this, or with Lego, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that don't exist in real life that we have to basically come up with, because people don't shoot lasers out of their eyes and they don't, fly, crazy spaceships into space.
We like to look at a sequence of action and figure out what this action piece needs to be either funny or action-packed or have that unique Lego sound. And so that often is very much at the core of our discussions with the sound engineer, is what sound effect will make this action sequence just a little bit funnier? What sound effect will add Lego to this?
You missed.
The Lego bricks are king. Whenever there's Lego action happening on screen, that is the king sound. That is the top sound. The Lego brick click is the most important sound that we put in the movie. And so whenever there's Lego brick action happening on screen, that is the sound that you're going to hear the loudest. Really, the guiding direction of a lot of our sound design is to just be fun. We want fun sounds on screen and unique Lego sounds on screen, so that you get that same fun feeling of playing with Lego at home.
Not overdoing the sort of goofy, silly sounds, but hitting them at the right moment really makes a difference. It's like telling the punchline of a joke.
We have a lot of discussions about comedy timing.
On this particular movie, there's a lot of comedy in it, so we're doing everything that we can to kind of play up the comedic moments.
A lot of times, if there's gaps in dialogue, we're trying to bridge that with fun or funny sounds.
I'm gonna be late! I'm gonna be late for the meeting! Again!
Sound and fully enhances the actor's performance.
I'm gonna be late! I'm gonna be late for the meeting! Again! Stupid cord.
There's a specific range of sounds that I think everybody finds funny. A lot of them involve people falling down.
Here's an example of, we've got a kind of a silly moment here where Captain Cold slips and he falls, and we kind of went through a couple of different versions of this. The first one being, we kind of overstated the funny. And so upon going through that, we kind of felt like, well, the xylophone, although it's funny, it's kind of out of nowhere. We still want to ground our sounds in some form of this world. So, we liked the idea of having a slip sound, and so we've got the kind of cartoony, slide whistle type sound that we've used on plenty of occasions. And then we've got the sort of, funny fall. So we then tried let's just try to take out the xylophone and see what's happening there, and it kind of sounds like this. It's still a bit cartoony, so we said, well, we still like the slip, but let's make it more of a realistic, slipping sound to where it actually sounds like he's kind of sliding on the ice. And instead of having that sort of goofy squeak sound as he falls, maybe we could have a harder fall. That smack as he falls down, I think, is a lot more realistic, but still kind of silly and fun, and kind of we'll still get the laugh, especially when we insert Captain Cold's voice.
We're in a Foley stage, and Foley stages are comprised of the stage itself, which is where the recording is done. That's where the Foley artist is with all the props and all of the surfaces. And then this is the control room that I'm sitting in, and this has the console and speakers, and this is where all the sound gets processed and recorded.
Let's make it a little bit bigger.
Foley is in its purest definition. Any sound effect that's recorded live and in sync to picture. And it typically comprises footsteps, cloth, and props.
Go ahead, run! It'll make your final defeat all the more enjoyable.
It's a very important aspect of filmmaking, completely. It's all the footsteps, all the props, all the kissing. And the cool thing about Foley is there's never a right or wrong way of doing it. It's experimentation.
Sometimes it's just about getting in the booth and, you know, finding any household item and just, you know, trying something and recording something. There's always kind of sloppy, gooey things in cartoons, and I had to create a sound once, and I went and got a bottle of barbecue marinade and just kind of flipped it upside down so you could hear the different kind of, you know, the bubbles and everything churning inside.
Coconuts, of course, are great for horses, and this is a clippity-cloppity, which is really nice. The footsteps are really tricky. It took me at least 4 to 5 years to get to the point where my footsteps were good enough. I'm going to give you a little trick on how to do a footstep. Basically, find a nice pair of hard shoes, and you're going to have to roll your foot, meaning that you have to start with your heel and roll your foot down. And then once you get good at it, you can use both your feet. And then you can go upstairs. But it all has to do with rolling your foot. So, hit your heel down first, and then roll.
A typical Foley stage has a number of different floor surfaces, anything that you would really encounter out in the world. You know, we have a concrete floor, we have various types of wood floors, and then we've got dirt pits.
We would do footsteps in grass with the same stuff that you fill in with your Easter baskets. You put your grass inside a dirt pit, and if you're walking through the woods, you don't want them all to sound the same. So here's an example of walking through woods and not all sounding the same. You could run.
The word Foley comes from Jack Foley. He was the guy who first started doing sync sound effects, and apparently he was amazing at it.
So after a while, instead of saying, go get, you know, that sync effects guy, Jack Foley, they would say, go get that Foley guy. It has come a long way, and I think more and more as people find out about it, it's a really great, cool career in Hollywood.
The Foley artist will use different kinds of shoes for different characters. And a lot of it is just searching for the right thing. And, you know, whether it's the perfect sounding shoe or the perfect sounding hinge if you're doing, you know, a door swinging. Foley artists will spend a lifetime just kind of finding and gathering these perfect sounding things.
When we were given the project, I was trying to figure out different ways to make different sounds. And it's a Lego movie, you know, and it's a Lego world. And so things need to be Legos.
Lego has such a unique and particular sound about it that almost anybody can identify.
In everybody's head that's ever played with Legos, they know what a Lego sounds like. So we had to really nail that sound.
I didn't want somebody watching this movie going, ooh, that was a really cool sound. How did you do that? Oh, I used a box and I used you know, a table and I did this with a piece of plastic. No, everything you hear in that movie, Foley-wise, is done with the Lego.
There was no reason to use anything else because Legos sound like Legos. And all of the destruction sequences when, you know, a building collapses and there's Lego debris falling. It's not wood, you know, it's little pieces of Legos.
The The Lego click is incredibly unique. When you start to think of it in terms of sound, you start to realize that
I could do better.
there's more than one click, and there's a lot of different variations that you can make with the click.
And a lot of times we had trouble, like, you know, doing certain things. When something gets exploded and then gets pulled back together, I didn't know what to do. So what we did is I get my shirt and I put the Legos inside my shirt, and as I would squeeze them, they sounded deeper. And then I would do a lighter thing coming together. And when Aaron would mix it together, it sounds really pretty unique.
There's an art to picking the right click for the right piece of brick action.
Aaron, can I make this guy like a little bit like listen.
Sure.
Just feel a different tone.
A Lego footfall, of course, is very different than a human footfall. And it's also very charming, and it's also very funny, so we spend a lot of time figuring out the footfalls.
I had to find out a way to make the Legos footsteps not all sound alike. I would use just 2 Legos at first, and I would just make one character like that. Then the next character, I would just make his shoe a little bit bigger. And then with the villains, what I would do is to make them a little bit deeper. I would add on more Legos so that I could hold it in my hand more, and then add the pressure of my hand on the Lego and make more of a footstep, which would allow each character in the Lego movie to have their own identity.
We'll have to table this little chat until later.
We work very hard in making sure that the sounds are communicating character and helping us differentiate between our good guys and our bad guys on the screen.
All the Legion of Doom characters are a little bit deeper. They all sound a little bit not as high-pitched and happy as the other characters.
And those sounds communicate a lot of story.
The cape is pretty important too. You know, it just adds that reality of the like Batman character or Superman character. I've been laughed at using my cape technique plenty of times, I have to say, because I move my whole body when I do it.
The quality of the sound is a combination of the prop or the object or whatever it is that Vinny's using. The performance is the second big aspect of it. Really just like a musician almost. The musician has his instrument, which is kind of the basis of generating the sound, and then the performance of the instrument is a huge part of it.
When I have the cape and it's fluttering, it has a different sound from when he's walking and I'm moving my hips to have it like, you know, going back and forth. It's being a method Foley artist. It's about becoming the character and being the cape on the character. So much so that when you're focused and you're there with it, there is no room, there is no microphone. You are the cape. And then when they call a cut, you're back to reality.
So often, whatever the character is handling on the screen, in real life, it doesn't sound like anything. You know, or it doesn't sound the way that the audience expects it to sound. In the case of the Lego heads popping off, we're kind of amplifying a sound that's already there. I mean, there is like a little bit of a tiny pop when you pull off Lego head. So in there you could hear there's a few different elements. We have the Lego pops, which we're using for the heads popping off.
That's got to be the oldest Foley trick in the book. It's basically, you know.
And then another thing you can hear in here is a cork.
Just the act of Cyborg's head reattaching to his body has a funny little pop sound to it, like a cork in a bottle. Sometimes the most mundane action just needs a funny sound because we're making a comedy.
And that was made just using a cork in a glass bottle.
The Lego movie has humor in it. It's okay if his head pops off. I didn't want to make it like, tragedy, his head falls off, So we added that with the little click coming off.
It's a funny moment, so we're trying to do what we can to kind of add to the comedy.
You need to stuff your emotions deep down inside. Feel nothing. Only plot, plan, and react to a world full of cowardly, superstitious criminals.
Once we get sort of things in a general place where we feel like it's working, I actually bring it into a room like this, which is actually where we'll be mixing. And I use the console here to sort of make choices of what I want to hear, where I want to hear it, how loud or soft something is, and start to blend the sounds that we've sort of cut in together at this point to sort of create more of a polished product.
They're using a combination of Foley sounds that we gave them, and then other kind of sound effects layered on top of that.
So here we had a scene that we've already finished it. We've got the traditional Lego sounds in there, but we also added a few extra impacts. So this is just basically our Lego Foley that we've done by itself for this sort of impact. So that was all shot with Vinny and Aaron in our Foley stage. And then we went through and we kind of added some extra crashes and debris falls to sort of, kind of punctuate, Darkseid's weight. He is a bigger character than Cyborg. So there's a little bit of bricks in there, real bricks, not Lego bricks. There's also a little bit of rock debris that's just sort of layered underneath, just to give it a little bit more weight. But as you can see, we're featuring the Lego sounds prominently. Oh yeah! It's funny, we work in a business where we're trying to make things sound really cool. At the same time, the more transparent we are, the better job we're doing in most cases. Because if they're not noticing what they're doing and they're just experiencing the movie and enjoying it, that's more about what's real good sound design.
The fun part about making the Lego movies is that the sounds get to be a little bit more the star of the show.
The sound it just kind of evokes like a really light-hearted emotion.
I think making movies is not much different than playing with your toys at home, honestly. We get to play with characters in a CGI world, but it all starts with playing with characters in the real world.
I played with Legos hours and days and God only knows how long. So it was important to me for them to be represented in the right way.
It sort of brings out the kid in you. It feels like you're playing. It's like we're playing around with Legos on screen. I mean, it's just such a fun experience, and that's what I want the kids to experience. I want watching something like this make them want to go to their room and pull out their Legos and try to build all of these kinds of things.
The building sounds and the debris sounds, all that kind of stuff, it's instantly identifiable, and it brings you right back, and that's the power of sound.
And it's a privilege to be in a position where I get to be as creative as I want.